They cuffed my captain's wife on my front porch while my grill was still smoking and my guests were holding paper plates. I still remember the sound metal clicking shut like somebody slammed a door on my whole night. And the two guys doing it weren't real cops. They were community security sent by the HOA. My name's Douglas Carter. I've worn a badge long enough to know the difference between authority and cosplay. That night was supposed to be easy. A backyard. BBQ, a few coworkers, a couple neighbors, kids running around with glow sticks, somebody arguing about football like it was life or death. Nothing wild, nothing reckless, just normal. The doorbell rang right as I was flipping the last burgers. I wiped my hands, opened the door, and there they were, two men in dark uniforms with shiny patches that read Oak Ridge Community Security. One was tall and rigid, jaw clenched, like he was already annoyed the world existed. His name tag said Nash. The other one was younger, half a step behind, clutching a clipboard like it was a badge. His tag said Cole. Nash didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was doing. He said, "We've received multiple complaints. Excessive noise, unauthorized gathering, vehicles blocking access. This party needs to shut down now." I stared at him for a second because the confidence was almost impressive, like he'd rehearsed that line in the mirror. "Who are you with?" I asked, calm and flat. Nash lifted a badge that looked like it came out of a vending machine. Too clean, too glossy. No wear, no scratches, no history. Cole jumped in fast. "We're contracted by the Homeowners Association. The HOA has authority here." That phrase, HOA authority, hits different when you're standing on your own porch and some stranger is talking like he owns your air. Nash flipped his clipboard and started reading violations like he was calling lottery numbers. Over-occupancy, improper parking, unregistered guests. Then, real casual, he added, "Non-compliance will result in fines and immediate towing." I looked past him and saw it two tow trucks idling down the street, lights dimmed, waiting like sharks. I let out a short laugh. "You're towing my guests because you don't like my cookout." Nash didn't blink. 30 minutes, then we start hooking. Behind me, my guests were drifting toward the doorway, trying to see what was happening without making it worse. I could feel the mood changing like a room when the music cuts out. Lieutenant Carolyn Price, one of my co-workers, stepped up beside me. She took one look at Nash's patch and asked him the simplest question on earth. "Which agency are you with?" Nash's eyes tightened. He didn't answer. He just raised his voice. "Ma'am, step back." Carolyn didn't step back. She didn't have to. She just stood there like a wall. That's when Cole pointed past us and said, "Her. She's interfering." I turned and saw Emily Hayes, my captain's wife, standing there holding a drink. Confused, not aggressive, not loud. Emily just asked, "You're not actual police, are you?" Nash moved fast, too fast for security. He grabbed her wrist, twisted it, and before anyone could process what was happening, click. Handcuffs. On my porch. At my BBQ. For a question. The whole doorway went silent for a heartbeat. Then people started talking at once. You could hear the anger, the disbelief, the panic trying to stay polite. And then Captain Robert Hayes pushed through the crowd like a storm. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He walked up, stared at Nash, and said quietly, "Take the cuffs off my wife. Right now." Nash puffed up like he wanted to swing his fake authority around again. "Sir, you need to—" Hayes didn't let him finish. "Now." Cole's hands were shaking on the clipboard. He mumbled something about policy. Policy. That word people hide behind when they don't have a real reason. Right then, I had a dozen trained officers on my porch. I could have had Nash on the ground in 2 seconds and called it a lawful detainment. I could have ended it physically. But I didn't, because I wasn't looking at two idiots. I was looking at a system that was using two idiots as a delivery method. If I dropped Nash in the driveway, Victoria Ashford, the HOA president, would have a press release ready by breakfast. She'd call it resident aggression, toss Nash under the bus, hire 2 new uniforms, and keep running the same play. So I did the harder thing. I stayed controlled. I looked Nash in the eye. "Uncuff her. And you're leaving. You're done." He hesitated just long enough to remind everyone he enjoyed the power, then he popped the cuffs off like he was doing us a favor. Emily rubbed her wrists, furious but composed. Hayes didn't move until she was free. As Nash walked away, he tossed one last line over his shoulder. "This isn't over. Your vehicles will be towed in 30 minutes. Then they disappeared into the dark like they'd been practicing exits. My party didn't end. It collapsed. People left in small clusters whispering, trying not to look shaken, while they checked their cars and hugged their kids a little tighter. The grill was still hot, the food was still there, but the night was dead. After everyone left, I stood in my kitchen staring at a sink full of cups and a backyard full of empty chairs. And I felt that heavy kind of exhaustion you only get when you realize someone is willing to cross lines and doesn't care who sees it. The next morning I didn't rant. I didn't post online. I didn't storm into the HOA office screaming. I knocked on doors. Because if that porch scene was a one-off, it was still ugly. But if it was a pattern, that was something you could break. Kayla Young, 70 years old, opened her door with trembling hands and showed me a warning notice taped to her mailbox. Community enforcement, it said, with a fake seal and a signature line. It was formatted like a city citation, but it wasn't. They came at night, she told me. I thought they were real. They said the HOA would have me removed if I didn't sign. The Martinez family showed me a stack of fines for things like leaving trash cans out too long or having too many visitors during the holidays. Stuart across the street said they threatened to report him for things that didn't even make sense just to make him shut up and pay. Every story tasted the same fear-pressure paperwork designed to look official and that same line at the bottom. HOA will escalate enforcement. I collected everything. Doorbell camera clips, phone videos, copies of the notices, dates, times, names, and tow truck plates. I didn't do it like a revenge mission. I did it like work because that's what it was now. 3 days later, she showed up. Victoria Ashford, president of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. Cream blazer, pearl earrings, perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. She stood on my porch like she was visiting a client, not a homeowner. Douglas, she said warmly. I heard there was an unfortunate incident. I didn't invite her inside. I didn't offer water. I just said, your contractors cuffed a guest at my home. Victoria's smile tightened. They're not my people. They're independent. Sometimes they get overzealous. Then she leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. I'd hate for you to make this public. The board doesn't like disruption. These things can get complicated. That wasn't an apology. That was a warning dressed in perfume. And it told me everything I needed to know. Captain Hayes came with me to the next HOA meeting. We didn't walk in like heroes. We walked in like adults who were done playing games. Victoria tried to keep it procedural. Motions, minutes, rules about who gets to speak and when. She kept calling everyone neighbors while holding a hammer behind her back. So I put a tablet on the table and played the porch video. You could hear the cuffs. You could hear Emily's voice catch. You could hear Nash saying, "You are being detained." The room changed instantly. A couple board members looked like they wanted to crawl under their chairs. Residents started murmuring, real murmuring, not polite, HOA whispering. Victoria sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes narrowed, like she was already doing mental math. After that meeting, I did what actually ends things. I followed the money. The HOA's security budget was climbing fast, way faster than it should for a quiet neighborhood. Payments were routed through a company with a name so generic it might as well have been called Totally Legit Services, LLC. Public records made it less funny. That company had ties back to Victoria's family. And suddenly, the porch incident wasn't just an intimidation stunt. It was part of a machine, uniforms, fake citations, towing threats, and a money pipeline keeping it all running. That week I hit a wall, not because I doubted myself, but because I understood what I was up against. A loudmouth in a fake uniform is easy. You arrest him, write the report, go home. But a homeowners association with contracts, board votes, and money moving through clean little channels, that's not a quick fix. That's a system designed to keep its hands looking official. I sat in my car outside my house, hands on the wheel, staring at my own porch like it was a crime scene. Not thinking, did I mess up? Thinking, what's the smartest move that actually ends this? Because if I went in swinging, Victoria would toss Nash under the bus, hire 2 new guys, and call it a personnel issue. And if I did nothing, Kayla keeps shaking every time someone knocks after dark, families keep paying fake fines, and sooner or later somebody gets hurt for real. So I stopped reacting and started building the case. I organized every video, every notice, every towing schedule, every payment trail. I wrote timelines. I pulled corporate records. I collected witness statements. No speeches, no drama, just receipts. Once I had enough, I didn't knock on Victoria's door. I knocked on the only door she couldn't smile her way out of. Before sunrise, real officers knocked on Nash's door. Not community security, not HOA muscle, actual law enforcement. Nash opened in sweatpants, blinking like he couldn't process that the power had flipped. Cole was already cracking. The second he saw real badges, real paperwork, real calm voices, he started talking like his mouth was on fire. She gave us the list, he blurted. Victoria. She told us who to target. She said make examples. She said people fall in line when you scare them. That same morning we served a warrant at the HOA office. We found stacks of fake notices templates ready to print. Resident files labeled like enemies. Tow schedules. Contracts that weren't just shady. They were built to funnel money through security enforcement. Victoria showed up while we were still there, furious, demanding to know who authorized this. Captain Hayes looked at her and said, "A judge." No yelling, no theatrics, just the truth landing like a hammer. At the hearing, they played the porch video again. This time, it wasn't just neighbors watching. It was attorneys, officials, people who understand what impersonation and intimidation actually mean. Victoria tried to call it a misunderstanding. She tried to act offended like she was the victim of rude residents and overzealous contractors. But her own paper trail cornered her. The contracts, the payments, the emails, the problem resident lists. It wasn't a mistake. It was a business model. She didn't just lose an argument. She lost her position. She lost control of the board. And when the consequences hit, they hit fast removal restitution bans and charges that don't disappear just because you wear a blazer and say procedure. Nash went down for what he did. Cole cut a deal and handed over everything. And Victoria Ashford, the woman who loved to talk about community standards, stood there watching her little kingdom crumble with nowhere left to hide. I walked out of that building feeling drained, not triumphant, because it shouldn't take handcuffs on someone's porch for people to believe you. But at least Oak Ridge Estates finally learned the difference between rules and abuse wearing a uniform. Power doesn't come from threats, it comes from what survives the evidence.